Lionel Messi is, in many people's eyes including my own, the greatest footballer to have ever laced up a pair of boots and kicked a ball about, and his importance to Barcelona is perhaps even more emphasised than ever right now, as a few seasons of substandard performances, ballroom disarray and awful transfer recruitments have been masked by Messi's genius, or had been up until they lost 8-2 to Bayern Munich. He has dragged the Blaugrana kicking and screaming to 2 league titles in the last 4 years, with a slight drop off in his own standards still representing an absurd and freakish season by anyone else's levels other than perhaps Cristiano Ronaldo. However, whilst he is adored by many and held in an extremely high regard all over the world, the people in his homeland, Argentina, do not have the same love for him as they do for the likes of Diego Maradona, Gabriel Batistuta, Mario Kempes, or perhaps even members of River Plate's famous La Máquina side of the 1940s. He is their third highest capped player of all time, only behind Javier Mascherano and Javier Zanetti, and he will soon overtake them both before too long, as well as being Argentina's highest goal scorer as well, with 71 goals in 142 games for La Albiceleste, but the Argentinian public haven't warmed to him in a way that many people would otherwise have presumed. So why is this the case? Well, in this video I'm going to give my reasons as to why I believe Lionel Messi isn't as revered in Argentina as many others might believe, or indeed on the same level as a few other of their most notable national heroes, when it comes to football of course. Perhaps the most obvious point to make concerning Messi's lack of intense reverence by those in his homeland is to do with the national team's success, or more specifically the lack thereof, during his international career. Argentina are trophyless in all competitions since 1993, when they won the Copa America, 6 years after Messi was born and 12 years before he made his international debut. Since then, they've come second in 4 of the last 6 Copa Americas, twice in the soon-to-be disbanded Confederations Cup, and once in the World Cup back in 2014, with another runners-up spot coming in 1990. Argentina's fans are craving for a trophy to dust away the cobwebs and provide them with the impetus they need to become the trophy machine they want to be, and indeed have been in the past, but it hasn't arrived yet, barring one Olympic gold medal in 2008. It was thought that that generation, with Messi at its forefront, would be the one to put Argentina back on top of the international game, but they have become nothing more than nearly men. Messi has been a part of the international fold since 2005, and he was a member of the squads for 3 of those 4 second place finishes in the Copa America, as well as for their run to the 2014 World Cup final, although he was also one of the star men as Argentina's under-23s won that Olympic gold medal in Beijing. By stark contrast, at club level, Messi's won a staggering 10 La Liga titles, 4 Champions Leagues, 6 Copa del Reys and 3 Club World Cups, as well as picking up countless individual honours, including 6 Ballon d'Ors along the way. He scored 91 goals in a calendar year alone back in 2012, 79 of which coming for Barcelona, and 50 in one La Liga season, that coming in the 2011-12 campaign, with his current tally for the Blaugrana reading 671 as of the time of this recording, and he's also recorded more assists than any other player worldwide, since records for assists are more accurately and intensely counted. The understandable gripe that arises from this amongst Argentines is that Messi has been unable to transfer this scintillating form for his club onto the international stage, especially in moments where it really matters. His first World Cup, back in 2006, saw him assist and score within 13 minutes of being substituted on for his World Cup debut against an admittedly hapless Serbia and Montenegro, but he didn't score again at the finals, although admittedly it's worth pointing out that this was of course in his fledgling years, so it's fair that we do cut him some slack on this occasion. Surprisingly though, his goal drought would continue into the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, as he didn't even score once for Diego Maradona's attack-minded outfit despite having the team centred around him, and they would be knocked out in the quarter-finals by Germany for the second tournament in succession. The 2014 World Cup, by which point he had been given the captaincy, finally seemed as though it would well and truly become Messi's tournament, as he scored 2 outstanding goals in the group stages against Bosnia and Herzegovina and Iran, and then 2 more against Nigeria in their final group game to assure them of a perfect record in the groups. He would assist their winner against Greece in the second round, but after that, his performances tailed off significantly and he didn't contribute to another goal, as Argentina would only score once in their next 3 games and were defeated by the Germans once again, but this time in the final. Messi would controversially collect the Golden Ball award for the best player at the tournament, a decision which was condemned by Maradona himself, but as he collected his prize, Sepp Blatter overheard him saying, "the best, but not the champion," over and over again to himself, as though the pressure on him weighed more heavily than ever before. In the next 2 years, Messi and Argentina would lose 2 Copa America finals to Chile on penalties, with the Flea missing the vital spot kick in 2016, skying his penalty over the crossbar. Almost immediately after the game, he announced his international retirement, stating that, quote, "I've done all I can, it hurts not to be a champion," close quote, before reversing his decision 2 months later and then helping Argentina qualify for the 2018 World Cup by virtue of a last game hat-trick against Ecuador, so that La Albiceleste could jump into the automatic qualification spots at Peru's expense. However, Argentina were a mess in Russia, which was perhaps summed up more emphatically than anything else by Messi's performance against Iceland, in which he had 11 shots but didn't score once, including seeing his penalties saved by the Icelandic goalkeeper, and his tally of 11 shots without scoring is the most by any player in any World Cup game since 1970. They were then humbled 3-0 by Croatia in their next game, although admittedly Messi then did put in an inspirational performance against Nigeria, scoring early on to help them win the game 2-1, before they came up against eventual winners France in the second round, and Kylian Mbappe well and truly put Messi in his place, seeing the show with 2 goals and a phenomenal display as the French won 4-3. Argentina were knocked out in just the second round, and then they were going to finish third in the next year's Copa America. In summary, therefore, his performances on the international stage, whilst obviously incredible compared to the vast majority of other footballers, simply do not reflect his influence over Barcelona, and that is one thing that most Argentines struggle to wrap their heads around. He has been unable to grab an international tournament by the scruff of the neck, and although he came close to doing so in 2014, the tailing off in the quality of his performances as the World Cup reached its latter stages, since most teams doubled up on him to prevent him from having an influence on the game, meant that he couldn't quite manage it. This means, especially with his failure in other competitions as implied earlier, that there hasn't been a so-called Messi's tournament, as many would have predicted when he emerged as a superstar. If you look back at Argentina's most recent major tournament successes, you'll realise that the tournament in question is often remembered by the performances, or maybe even just a singular performance, of key individuals at critical times that subsequently endear them permanently to the Argentine masses. In 1978, when Argentina benefited from home advantage to win their first ever World Cup title, Daniel Passarella was the indomitable leader of the side, captaining them through to glory and becoming immortalised as a national hero for being the first Argentine to lift the trophy for their home country. Furthermore, Mario Kempes, the only player in the squad who was based abroad, justified his selection by not only winning the Golden Boot, but scoring all of his goals from the second group stage, which was effectively the semi-finals, onwards, including twice in the crucial 6-0 victory against Peru in their final group game, and then twice more in the final against the Netherlands. The 1986 tournament, which of course Argentina won, could very reasonably have its name changed to the Diego Maradona World Cup, not only because of how spellbinding his performances were, especially in the knockout stages when the tension ramped up a notch, but because of his antics, his comments, and his unflinching desire to win, and the image of him lifting the World Cup that year was perhaps more deserved than for any other player at a World Cup finals in its entire history. In 1993, of course the year of Argentina's last major international trophy, Gabriel Batistuta scored twice in the final to send Argentina on their way to glory, meaning that, as bizarre as it may seem to outsiders, he is perhaps as idolised as Messi, if not even more so, simply because he propelled his nation to glory in a way that Messi has, as of yet it must be stressed, been unable to achieve. Messi is of course by no means finished for his country, and the proposition of winning this summer's Copa America, or even the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar, and possibly even the 2024 Copa America, by which point Messi will be 37, and therefore will surely be his last chance of winning an international trophy if he hasn't won either of the previous 2 tournaments, could seem too enticing to let slide. He will have to pick himself up and galvanise the troops around him, something which, given Messi's habitually shy character, doesn't come to him all that easily, but if he can guide his nation to glory, even in his twilight years as his powers will inevitably fade, the level of respect for him in his homeland will certainly increase, perhaps not to the same level as Maradona's, but certainly close. However, there is one critical aspect to showcase why Messi isn't as revered in Argentina as some of his compatriots, and it's to do with his personality and his appearance. It is important though that we dispel one aspect on this front straight off the bat, that apparently this is to do with his supposedly greater affection for his adopted homeland of Catalonia over the place where he was born. That, frankly put, could not be further from the truth. Messi is a proud Argentine who was sent over to Spain at the age of 13 simply because Barcelona were willing to pay for his growth hormone medication which he needed to take, and while that does mean he has spent over half of his life away from his home and become more accustomed to Spain, few question his commitment to the shirt and the badge. Although he wasn't one to sing out the national anthem pre-games, that changed during the 2019 Copa America, with Messi belting out the words, and in that very tournament he began to come out of his shell and criticise the state of the pitches in Brazil, as well as stating that the tournament was corrupted and set up to lead Brazil to glory. CONMEBOL, South America's governing body, fined him heavily and banned him from playing for his country for 3 months, but although it had taken some time, we finally started to see a character from Messi just when his country needed it most. When he originally announced his international retirement in June 2016, swathes of fans begged him to change his mind, with No Te Vayas Leo becoming a trending topic on social media, a statue of him being erected in Buenos Aires, and the president of Argentina himself even calling Messi personally in an attempt to bring him around. He eventually reversed his decision 2 months later, stating that his love for his country was too great for him to back down, and whilst the fans have admittedly booed him in the past, Ronaldo was booed by Real Madrid fans, so it's clear you can't really please everyone at all times. Therefore, it's obvious that Messi is seen to be Argentinian at heart in terms of his patriotism and commitment to the cause. The problem, though, is that Messi is not seen to be Argentinian in person, and certainly not in a footballing context. The phrase "football is life" can be applied as hyperbole to many countries and people, but perhaps nowhere is that phrase so fervently embodied in society than in Argentina. It is often tied to Argentina's socio-political context, where when the country started to dip financially, so too did its footballing talent and skill. Indeed, in the 1960s, when Argentina was experiencing severe financial hardships, their club sides resorted to rough, physical styles of play, which led them to being perceived as anti-football machines by many outsiders, and indeed their own fans. Nowhere was this more accurately symbolised than by Racing Club's brutal Intercontinental Cup clash with Celtic in 1967, where 6 players were sent off in the 3rd match between them alone, with the previous 2 games having been marred by constant fouling and spitting by the Racing players. However, when the economy recovered in the 1970s, the style of play once again became something to behold, and they would win the World Cup twice by the end of the 1980s. As a result of the sport being inextricably linked to the wider fortunes of society, the Argentine public are desperate to see their national team experience immense success. But more than that, they need a footballer to whom they can personally relate in terms of their story, upbringing, character and appearance, which they have by virtue of a term which was created by the writer Boyacotto in 1928. He wrote that a statue should be dedicated to the inventor of dribbling, before going on to coin the term pibe, which literally means either kid or urchin, to describe such a figurehead. He wrote that a pibe should have, quote, a dirty face, a mane of hair rebelling against the comb, with intelligent, roving, trickster and persuasive eyes, and a sparkling gaze that seemed to hint at a picaresque laugh that does not quite manage to form on his mouth. Close quote, before going on to describe such a person's upbringing as poor and ragged, but always with the ball at their feet, no matter what material it was made out of. Football tied into this perfectly, as you might have been able to gather as a result of the latter end of that description, but also since it allows someone to retain their childlike nature and never fully mature once they go onto a pitch. Diego Maradona is perhaps the perfect example of this. He grew up in near destitution, even falling into a vat of excrement when he was just 2, yet he and the football were almost always together, regardless of where he was. His appearance matched Boyacotto's description of a pibe, and on the pitch, he was like a kid in a playground, in that he would casually run between defenders, bust out flicks and tricks on a regular basis, and wreak mayhem seemingly at will. His performances at that 1986 World Cup are perhaps the finest ever seen by a footballer at a single tournament, and even when he cheated, he would remorselessly own up to it. However, he also had an extravagant character about him, and even though his demons with alcohol and drug abuse were well documented and perhaps eventually led to his tragic death last year, his addictions and problems only endeared him to the public even more, becoming the epitome of a flawed genius. Messi, frankly put, is not such an example. Unlike Maradona, he is a model professional, dedicating long hours to being the best he can be, making sure that his diet is flawless, his image squeaky clean, and his performance is high quality, even now at the age of 33. He wasn't brought up in vast swathes of wealth by any means, but he certainly wasn't living in poverty either, which means that he isn't seen by some Argentines as one of them. Even Carlos Tevez is perhaps more admired by the public, since he grew up in an extremely tough and impoverished neighbourhood from which he still bears the scars of his time there, but he went on to achieve immense success, and of course wealth, through playing football, providing hope to the public that they too can succeed in whatever they do. The aforementioned Batistuta too had that flowing hair and on-the-ball ability symbolic of the Pibe, much like Maradona and, to an extent, Tevez, especially in his early days. And of course, Batistuta scored the goals to help Argentina win that latest Copa America triumph some 28 years ago now. Messi did originally have that long-haired look about him, as well as the flair and tricks to glide past opponents in an almost innate manner, but over time, and especially once Pep Guardiola got his hands on the diminutive forward, those traits started to be removed, or rather refined, to change him into a more ruthless and relentless player who became one of the best in the world. He realised that his natural agility allowed him to just run through defenders as opposed to needing to bust out a myriad of skills in order to win those one-on-one battles. But whilst it improved him as a player, of that there is no question, it removed a lot of the unpredictable nature to his game that had served the likes of Maradona, and to an extent Juan Román Riquelme, so well, and allowed him to be admired, if not revered, by the Argentine public. Of course, Messi still had, and indeed still has, that entertainment factor about him that draws you in to want to watch him. It's just in a different form from what it was when he first broke onto the scene. He has undoubtedly become a better footballer for that very reason, but you would be kidding yourselves if you said that a 26-year-old Messi wasn't as enticing to watch for his sheer unpredictability as a 26-year-old Diego Maradona, or even someone like Ronaldinho, or perhaps even JJ Okocha when they were in full flight. Is Messi better than the latter two players? Unquestionably so, and it is as a result of the changes that he made to his game to make him more direct and effective and less full of tricks and flicks and general showboating antics that has contributed to his career's longevity. However, as a result of this, he became the type of player to draw you in to watch him simply because of his genius and not as a result of his sheer unpredictability or flair that the aforementioned three players would bring to the pitch on a regular basis. These factors, ultimately, are what have made the Argentine public not quite as enamoured by Messi as many other people the world over, and whilst he is a national hero, he is not eternally revered just yet. The flair, extravagant character and unpredictability on the pitch that could have put him there, especially if he had guided Argentina to a tangible trophy, has been long gone and will never return, given that Messi is now 33 and still focused on his pursuit to be the best of all time, and he cannot really be the true embodiment of a Pibe that Maradona was, for example. However, he can definitely put himself just below that top bracket if he provides the spark that brings to an end Argentina's long trophy drought at either the Copa America this summer, which Argentina fans will most certainly take given their barren spell, or the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, or indeed both, and if he does that, his status will be elevated even further. For now though, whilst Argentines do see him as one of, if not the, greatest of all time, much like the rest of the football-loving world, they can't quite reach a point where they see him as the undisputed legend of Argentine football, purely since he hasn't got any trophy to show for his hard work on the international stage, and nor does he embody the true spirit of Argentina, or more specifically the Pibe character, in the eyes of the masses. That just about wraps up today's video on my analysis to why I think Messi isn't quite as revered in his homeland as some of his compatriots, or indeed on the same level as he is elsewhere. But if you think I'm completely wrong or have any other ideas as to why you think this might be the case, let me know down in the comments below because I'd be genuinely interested to see what you guys have to say on this matter. But if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and there's a little notification bell that you can ring to the side of the subscribe button once you have pressed it, of course, that will notify you whenever I upload a video straight away. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.